Imagine you've finally made it inside a medieval castle. Thick stone walls, torchlight, guards at every door, and you think the dungeon is the worst place to end up. But the real danger is somewhere you'd never brag about visiting. The castle toilet. The garderobe. The privy. The place everyone pretended didn't exist. Yet it could ruin reputations, spread sickness, expose secrets, and in rare moments, kill more efficiently than a sword fight. Here's the problem. Castles were built to resist armies, not biology. Waste had to go somewhere, and the most common solution was brutally simple. Build a small, closet-like seat on an outer wall and drop everything down a vertical shaft into a cesspit, ditch, or sometimes straight into a moat. That sounds convenient until you remember. This is a crowded fortress packed with people, animals, kitchens, torches, smoke, damp straw, and stress. One badly placed shaft, one overflowed pit, one contaminated water source, and suddenly the safe castle becomes a slow-motion trap. And history gives us a nightmare snapshot of how lethal this world could be. In 1184, at Erfurt in the Holy Roman Empire, a packed meeting of nobles ended in disaster when a wooden floor collapsed and people plunged into a latrine pit below. Dozens died in the chaos, including high-ranking nobles. One moment it's politics, the next it's a sudden, filthy mass death that nobody saw coming. Now take that fear and bring it into the castle itself. The garderobe wasn't just a bathroom, it was an exposed weak point, a secret adjacent space, and a rumor factory. Think about it. Castles were obsessed with control. Who sees the lord? Who hears what? Who enters which corridor? But everyone eventually has to use the privy, and that means even powerful people become predictable. A routine, a vulnerability. You can't stand watch on dignity. That's why medieval stories and later chroniclers loved privy murder rumors. The idea that the most powerful man in the fortress could be reached at his most human moment felt terrifyingly believable, even when details drift into legend. And even without an assassin, the privy could betray you through something more medieval than a dagger: gossip. Servants notice who goes where, who lingers, who meets in a corridor afterward. A whispered conversation outside a garderobe door becomes a political weapon by breakfast. The castle is a machine of hierarchy, and the privy is the one place where hierarchy has to queue like everyone else. Now layer on sanitation. In many towns and cities, night soil and cesspit waste had to be removed by specialized workers, people remembered with grim fascination in later sources as gong farmers, men who climbed into pits and hauled out filth for a living. The kind of job that tells you everything about medieval reality. There was no magic system making the mess disappear, just desperate labor in darkness. In a castle, if pits weren't cleaned properly or were placed poorly, waste could seep, smell, overflow, or attract insects and rodents. If the fortress relied on local water sources, contamination wasn't just disgusting, it was dangerous. And danger in the medieval world rarely arrived like a dramatic movie villain. It arrived like weakness, fever, dehydration, infection. Quiet outcomes that didn't look heroic, which is exactly why they frightened people. Because you can fight a soldier, you can't duel a sickness crawling through your household. Even worse, castles during sieges became pressure cookers. More people inside, less space, less fresh water, and fear turning every cough into a prophecy. The garderobe, in that moment, stops being a background detail and becomes a survival problem the castle's proud stone can't solve. And here's the twist that makes this topic hit. The privy wasn't only about filth, it was also about architecture and access. Many garderobes were built into outer walls so waste could drop outside the living space. And that meant you had a small room on the perimeter, sometimes with openings and chutes, exactly the kind of feature that can become a security headache. People love secret passage fantasies, but the real medieval secret is uglier. Castles had necessary holes, shafts, and service spaces that were never designed for romance. They were designed for function, and function creates loopholes. It's why castle security was always a balance between military design and daily life. The Lord can build thick walls, but he still needs kitchens, drains, storage, servants' routes, and a place for waste. Every system you add to keep humans alive is also a system someone can exploit, whether it's spies listening for information, servants moving messages, or criminals timing a theft around routines. And medieval life ran on routines. If you want a castle to feel like a safe zone, you need food, drink, warmth, and sanitation. If any one of those breaks, the castle stops being a fortress and starts being a crowded stone box where panic multiplies. That's why the dungeon is almost a distraction. It's obvious, it's dramatic, it's rare. The garderobe is normal, daily, inescapable. And because it's normal, it's where the castle's illusion of control is most fragile. In a medieval worldview, that fragility wasn't just practical, it was psychological. People believed foul air could harm you, believed bad places carried bad luck, believed certain corners of a building could turn against you. So when a castle sanitation failed, it didn't just smell, it felt like the fortress was cursed, like God's protection had stepped away, like something rotten had entered the household in more ways than one. And once that belief takes root, the real war begins inside. Fear, accusation, scapegoats, whispers about poisoned wells or treacherous servants, sudden suspicion aimed at anyone foreign or unpopular. The garderobe becomes a spark for paranoia because it sits at the crossroads of the body and the state. Private need inside a public hierarchy. So if you ever wondered what the most dangerous place in a medieval castle really was, don't picture chains and torture devices first. Picture a small door in a cold stone corridor, a wooden seat over a dark drop, and a system everyone relies on but nobody wants to talk about. Because in a world without modern sanitation, that quiet little room could threaten health, security, and power all at once. And it did it invisibly. The most medieval kind of danger, the kind you only notice after it's already too late.